What's up, guys? Hey, welcome back to Lyssa and Lyssa. I'm your host, Alyssa. I have this episode ready for you, the one you've been waiting for. Now, while I know the holidays are typically regarded as a time of actually, the holidays can be a pretty triggering time for a lot of people, and sometimes it's not so great and it's not so happy. So if you are watching this today and that was your experience this holiday season, I just want to commend you for the fact that you are here today watching my video. And I just want to say great job making it through that, because I know that that was not easy at all. It's one of the toughest times of year. I understand. So thank you for being here to watch my video today after all of that. And I'm grateful for you for just that. So, like, I'm sure there's a million other qualities about you that are so much more amazing than that. So just remember that and realize that the tough time is over. You made it through it. You did it. And you're here. Thank you. Wow. So we're continuing on with the list that I compiled of those sneaky red flags that can look so subtle and well-meaning in the beginning stages that I have found tend to be very problematic and just turn into these little ticking time bombs that threaten to cause a massive explosion in your life later on down the lines. These are the ones that seem to signal that you are in for a toxic relationship cycle, and that the pain that you stand to endure at the end of this relationship is nowhere near worth the experience. So it would serve you best to learn to recognize these red flags for what they are, and so that you don't overlook them another time in the future. Or maybe even this can save somebody from overlooking them the first time. Okay? So we've done 5 red flags so far. And this episode is a special interlude to tell you how I have formulated a plan to take on these red flags and to address the things that are going to definitely sabotage you in the end. How to handle them early on so that that doesn't get that far. It doesn't happen. And I promise you, it will save so much heartache for you. It will save so much of your time. It will save so much of your patience. It will save so much of that beautiful light that you have inside of you. These things can build your character. I understand that, and that's great when you can find that silver lining. But these things, these are just like that light dimmer. Those things that stand to harm us significantly. And I think 1 or 2 times going through something to this level, I don't wish this on anybody even one time, but even the lower level of this, just going through it a couple times is enough. These types of relationships cause regret and resentment and things that just ultimately harm you. I'm going to reveal in this episode now the biggest mistake I think I was making and the process that I was failing to do at the beginning of relationships that caused me to end up in this cycle. I think sometimes people take relationships a little too lightly when they're an area of significant impact in your life. They can impact you so massively. They're very much worth learning how to tread carefully and have an intention about it. We're back. Let's get right into it, okay? Let's do it. So this is the moment you've been waiting for. So, what do you do about this when you see these red flags? Because some of these, what if you're wrong? You just break up with them right then, or do you have a conversation? What do you do? When is too much too much? Where is the line? Where are you operating from a hurt place of your past and being too rigid? Or where are you letting too much slide? How do you figure this out? And so I want to let you in on what you should be doing in the beginning that's going to help you vet out the people that are going to hurt you like this. Now, can it vet out everyone? No. It can't. You know, there's always going to be those people that play the long game. Those wonderful people that just really blindside people in like way later years. And that's horrible.
You got mail.
Hello, Basil.
Hello, Austin. How was your honeymoon?
Well, it turns out that Vanessa was a fembot.
Yes, we knew all along, sadly. Anyway, I haven't...
But that happens much less frequently than the people who, when you really be honest with yourself, they showed it pretty early on.
That's really offensive.
Right. This is how to not let what's happening in your brain at that moment and all those good feelings that you have, built up block you from being able to recognize the red flags and to address them and not be swayed to overlook them when you know better. So pay attention, pay attention, pay attention, pay attention. So mistake number one, not knowing what your boundaries are, not knowing what your red flags are. Like, what are the red flags? What is a red flag to you? Which ones are more serious than others? What red flags are deal breakers the first time you see them? Which red flags are maybe a little bit more workable? Which ones deserve a few chances and which one deserve no chances? How do you figure all this out? Whether you're in a relationship right now or you are single, now is the time to figure this out if you haven't yet. So you want to get a list together of red flags that are your red flags. And I would suggest putting them into categories. Okay, so you're going to write out your red flags and you're going to put them in categories of deal breakers, one and done. Red flags that are iffy. You might have some compromises to make about what constitutes as the red flag. It might be a difference of opinions between your relationship, or it might be something that you're willing to move a little bit with, kind of maneuver a little bit with that one. And then down to the lowest level of red flags that you're willing to excuse a few times as long as the needle is moving. When you're creating this list, write the red flag, define what the behavior of acting out that red flag specifically is. So there's a model in behavioral therapy where you have to talk about the antecedent, which is what happens right before the behavior, then the behavior, and then the consequence. And for the behavior part, we had to very specifically, meticulously define exactly what constituted as the behavior. So it's like, this is exactly what I'm saying is that behavior, so that when we see it, we could clearly say that behavior happened. So do that for the red flags. Make sure you're saying exactly what takes place by way of action or words or whatever it is for that to have been that red flag happening. Define it. You can put some examples if that helps your brain. Whatever's going to help you in this part, this is just suggestions. The second thing you want to do is you want to examine yourself. Check yourself for any red flags that you have that are on your list. Now, depending on your level of ability to self-reflect, this can be challenging. Sometimes we don't see ourselves through an unbiased lens. There are blind spots, but the best you can. And if you want somebody that you trust, or somebody that's been in a relationship with you that you're still friends with, whatever it is, or your mother or whoever you know would give you an honest feedback, make sure that you don't do any of these red flags. If you have any of them in there, work on that first. You want to make sure you're not violating the thing that you're not going to accept. So make sure that you're clear on that. And then examine your beliefs. So think about, when you think about relationships, if you say a relationship is, or I think relationships are, this is what tends to happen in relationships. Anything that you think to be very true about relationships, even if it sounds bad when it comes out of your mouth, if it's in your head, write it down because it's a belief. You might know it's not true, but if it comes to mind, write it down, because that could be an embedded belief that you have in there that is affecting how your relationships turn out. Because what do we know about the mind? We know that the mind take your beliefs and reflect them into your reality, right? Make sure that they match. So if you have a belief in there, even if when it hits your conscious brain, you're like, oh no, that's not really real. It's still in there and it's still having an effect. Self-fulfilling those prophecies all over the place and just running amok. If you have quite a few limiting beliefs about relationships, like let's say you don't think relationships last. You don't think they can last in modern day. Maybe you think that relationships are stifling. Maybe you think relationships are unbalanced and that they always go bad for you. If anything like that comes up and you notice that it's in line with the pattern of relationships you've had in the past, there's probably something going on there. And it's not to say that you're to blame whatsoever. No, I'm just saying that there might be a belief in there that could be influencing the turnout that you get. So if you want to make sure that you are ready for your next relationship, I would advise you check out Personal Development School. It's run by Thais Gibson. She is a therapist, counselor in practice. She also developed the integrated attachment theory. It's like my favorite thing, okay? You could do a 7-day trial and you can get access to all of her courses. And there's one in there that helps you determine your beliefs, your self-limiting beliefs in your subconscious mind. It'll help you find all of them out. And it'll tell you exactly how to reprogram to not have them in there anymore. And I would highly advise that you take that course and get that out of the way within your 7 days. It's doable for sure. And then you work on those beliefs, because it's going to make you have such better outlooks on yourself, such a better experience in life overall, and you're going to have better relationships. Seriously, it's so amazing. So try that. Personal Development School, Thais Gibson. Check it out. I would advise you buy the subscription, because it's not extremely expensive. You get access to all of the classes. There's so many in there. I do not work for these people. I do not have an affiliation whatsoever. I simply just really believe in it. And I have the subscription, and I use the classes, and I love them. I get so much information from there. And it also has a community of people that are so amazing that support you, and that there's webinars weekly. It's a great place to be. So check it out if it sounds interesting to you. Once you feel like you've examined yourself, you got that all worked out, each of your red flags are going to have a boundary connected to them. Now, boundaries are not for you to tell other people what to do, what they should do, what they need to do. They're not for bossing people around. Boundaries are saying what you are going to do, what you are going to participate in, and also clearly defines what you are going to do should that boundary be violated repeatedly or even once. Let's talk about when you're actually in the relationship and the first red flag happens. Okay, one of those on your list happens. In this example, let's use passive-aggressive behavior. All right, so I'm going to set up a scenario for you, and I'm going to walk you through how you handle it. The very first, most important point about this, though, a key component, is that you need to address the red flag that's on your list the very first time it happens. Very first time you need to enact the process that you have planned out for this red flag. This has to be set the very first time you see it. Because if you tolerate, you're just playing with fire. You're just working up a web for yourself that you might not be able to get out of. So you want to set the precedence that you're not going to tolerate it, actually, unless it's one of your ones that you're going to tolerate. Like whatever it is, whatever parameters you set in your boundary must be adhered to. You cannot backpedal on your boundary. You cannot let up on it. It's strict. You set it and you stick to it. This is how you teach people how to treat you. This is how you teach people how to respect you and how you need to be valued. And you protect yourself from these toxic relationships that drag you down, and end up wasting years of your life, even after they're over. You don't want that. During addressing these red flags, when you're addressing it with your partner, you don't want to be in a tizzy. You don't want to be out of control in any way. You want to be very calm, collected. You don't want to be in a reactionary state. You want to be in a state where you have collected yourself and you have a very confident, calm demeanor, and you know what you're talking about, and you have no apologies to give about it. And you also want to have a gentleness about you, a compassion, be kind, clear and kind and calm and confident, okay? The message here that you want to demonstrate, and you want to make sure this is true. So if this happens in a moment where you're feeling very upset about it, don't react. Do whatever you got to do. Keep it in or go to the bathroom, excuse yourself, but don't react. Reacting is like whatever comes out, and you don't want to do that. You want to wait and thoughtfully respond by letting them know confidently what your boundaries are and what you expect for yourself, okay? You can do that. So wait until you actually feel that way to address it, but don't wait forever. But if you need a little time to get there, it's well worth it. So you want to come from a place of,
I am just going to confidently tell you my value and how you can make sure that you respect my value. And I will then do what I need to do if you don't.
and you want to be able to say that calmly and kindly and confidently, okay? You want to always address these in person if you can. Okay, there may be a situation where you can't, just absolutely cannot meet up with them in person. It's going to be way too long before you see them in person next time and you need to address it. So then by phone, but don't do it in text. There's an element of tone that's very important here. And there's an element of like your energy and really feeling out their answers for things and them really getting your point as well. So you need to do it voice to voice, hopefully in person, but on the phone is okay if it's a second option. So let's talk about a real situation. Let's say you've been dating this person now for 2 months. Okay, I was just going to describe the example for you, but I'm feeling like I want to have fun, so I'm going to do a skit. Check it out. So here's an example of how you would react to a red flag if it happened in your situation. This is going to be a red flag where you're willing to give a few chances as long as they agree to work on it. As long as they agree that they're on board with you and they don't think that's appropriate behavior as well, and they're willing to work at it, then you are willing to not be so rigid and understand that it might creep up here and there, but as long as like they're doing their best, they're not doing it like constantly or really in a cruel way, the passive aggressive one, then you're willing to be reasonable, okay?
So want it. Pretty Ricky. Pretty Ricky. Whoa. Oh. Late one. It'll be like, I said, just kidding. Yeah, I can say that's her. It's okay. I'm on my way. No problem. Let's go. Yeah. Where's this girl? Out here yet? Yay! Yay! Oh! She looked good tonight. I think we forgive her for being late. Yeah, right here. Sexy. Don't touch that door. Dread.
I guess the chivalry hasn't died yet.
Not for a queen like you.
Thank you. I really appreciate it.
Your fine self.
Aww. I'm so sorry about the lateness. We're only gonna be about 5 minutes late, right?
About 5 minutes late. It's no big deal. Don't worry about it.
I'm so sorry. Yeah, my boss called it like the last minute, the very last minute.
Oh, shh. Yeah, you're fine.
Really?
We're good. It's in the past.
I really apologize. I hope your friends aren't upset.
Yeah, this is gonna be fine. Yeah, we'll be there. Just have fun. Let's just go have fun.
Okay. Thank God. I'm starving.
No, girl. It's fine. It's fine. You look fine. You look good. And I looked her dead in her eyes and I said, don't ever disrespect me with a $5 shirt on ever again. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Put her in her place. Oh, don't you touch that door. Hey. Hi.
Ronnie's here. You must be Gina.
Yeah.
You made it.
Hey guys. What do we miss?
Oh, barely anything. You missed nothing. I'm so happy you're here. Hi.
Whew, alright, cool.
I'm going to look at the drink menu because they did come by and ask about drinks, but they're going to be back.
You know me. I'm always early. I was always taught. If you're early, you're on time. If you're on time, you're late. You know what I mean?
That's
Hey! You know what I'm talking about.
Facts, my
Right.
dude, facts.
Right. Don't just forget that. It's a respect thing, right?
100%.
And you feel me? Yeah. Sometimes it's not all up to you.
You know one thing? Looking at this menu, I'm just glad I didn't miss the appetizers.
Yeah, let me see that menu.
It's a lovely restaurant. Thank you so much for inviting us.
Of course.
It's so nice to finally meet you.
You too. Ronnie talks about you so much.
I'm gonna go to the bathroom, okay?
Okay.
Is it this way?
Yeah, down the hall to your left.
I'll be right back.
Don't take long, I'll miss you.
So there you have it. Gina and Ronnie. Gina did the right thing. She did not address the red flag the moment it happened. She was feeling a little upset at it, a little bit irritated, so she excused herself to the restroom. Perfect. You do not want to react in a moment where you can't fully address the red flag and you can't have the conversation. So if you're not feeling like you can be authentically you in that moment, then you want to somehow excuse yourself and kind of collect your mood and get yourself back on track. Maybe go have a little pep talk in the bathroom to yourself and go over your boundary in your head and be like, I'm going to address it at this time when we're alone, and right now I can put that in this compartment and I can still authentically finish this dinner and not feel like I need to be passive aggressive back. Okay, so if you need to do that, that is a good strategy. Okay, and now let's talk about addressing the problem. You want to plan when you're going to address it. So for Gina and Ronnie, let's imagine they're probably going to drive home after the restaurant. If that's going to be their only time together for the rest of that day and the next day, probably want to do that. The best place to be is stationary, not driving, in a private place, like in a home, your home, their home, whatever it is. And make sure you can be comfortable. You can sit next to each other. You can have affection while having the conversation. You want to put yourself on their team against the issue so that they don't feel like you're coming at them as the problem. And that's the best way to get through conflict resolution. So if you can do it anywhere other than the car, that would be great. If the car's your only hope or the phone is your only hope, then do it. There's no issue with waiting till the next day. It's actually pretty good to sleep on something. Anytime you sleep, your brain is going through a lot of processes, moving things around and clarifying things for you. So you might see everything a little bit more poignantly the next day and have a better time coming at it a little more in the mood and the mindset that you need to come at it in. So let's say that Ronnie and Gina planned out their time to talk. Gina asked him if he was busy the next day. He said he wouldn't be busy. So she said, okay, I'm going to come over tomorrow. So next day. Now I'm going to walk you through how you would approach this, the steps that you would take. Now, every single one of your red flags and your boundaries is going to be a little bit different. So there might be little tweaks here and there, but this is the general method that you would follow, and you could apply this to pretty much any red flag and any boundary that you're wanting to set. You just need to alter the verbiage for each part to fit whatever your stipulations are and whatever happened in your situation. So I'm going to just give you this whole example using the example we're already using with Gina and Ronnie, okay? So the very first step is you're sitting down with your partner, next to them, not across from them. They're your partner, teammate, right? Okay. Hey, babe. You're going to summarize the situation where the red flag occurred. Your partner needs to know what the heck you're even talking about. So you're going to set the scene again so that they know exactly when this happened and what you're even referring to. All right. So the way I would do that in this situation is I would say something like,
last night when I was running a little bit behind, I felt really bad. And that was why when I got into the car, I was apologizing multiple times and telling you I'm so sorry that I was running late. And at that time, you had reassured me that it was okay. We were 5 minutes late. Do you remember this?
That question at the end is just like a little check-in moment. So you want to do that so that this feels like a conversation, not just you talking at them. Step 2 is you're going to point out the red flag. So you're just going to describe that behavior that you saw as a red flag and how it occurred. You want to speak in objective fact, address the actual things that were seen and not what you interpreted them to be. I would say,
I thought we had covered that before arriving at the restaurant, so when you made the comment at the table about it being a respect thing, it made me wonder if you were maybe more upset about this than it seemed like in the car.
And then at that part, I wouldn't pause. I would just go straight into number 3. This is where you're going to use an I statement to directly express the emotion that this made you feel. Not thoughts, not actions. So like, I felt like you were hinting at something. No, I felt sad. I felt hurt. I felt upset. I felt angry. I felt frustrated. An emotion, okay? And then you're going to say when that happened. You probably want to inundate this into all of your conversations where you're addressing a conflict, because our natural urge is to say,
You did this.
You did this.
You did this to me.
You always do this.
You did this again.
That's like our natural way of saying things pretty much if we don't tailor it. And a better way is to make a statement that is not so aggressive and one that doesn't put your partner immediately on the defensive and make them feel attacked. Instead, you're going to say what you need to say, but you're also going to be able to express what your emotions are about it, to tell your partner how you felt, which is valid no matter what, because you feel how you feel. Your feelings are valid. So there's nothing to be defensive about there, right? And then you're going to just state what happened. Nothing to be defensive about there because you're just restating what happened again. Okay, so it sounds something like this.
I felt a bit uncomfortable because I wasn't sure how to interpret the comment at the restaurant based on how it was different from our interaction in the car.
I felt uncomfortable. You can't argue with that. That's my feelings. And then because this, and this happened, there's nothing to be defensive about there, right? So you'll potentially get a lot further with a statement like that than you would have with something like,
you must have been lying in the car because all of a sudden you got really rude at the restaurant and basically just told everyone that I was the reason we were late.
that's an entirely different statement than the one before. And it's going to get you an entirely different reaction, I assure you. Okay, so always change it to an I statement. You can say you, because if they're involved in what happened, you're going to have to say you at some point, but just don't be using the you in an abrasive way, like accusing them of doing something to you. What comes after this part is you're going to state your boundary clearly. Now, when you set a boundary, remember a few things. Boundaries are clear and kind. They are meant to help your partner understand your internal world. They are expressed as what you need and what you are willing to do and what you are going to participate in, what you are looking for, what you want you. Okay, they're about self. Boundaries are not about controlling another person, bossing them around, and telling them what they're going to do. Okay, they're not ultimatums. They also have a clear mode of action for if they continue to get violated. So I actually read the Book of Boundaries by Lyssa. I cannot remember her last name right now, but she is going to be right here on the screen. And in that Book of Boundaries, she talks about how you don't always have to state what you're going to do if this boundary gets continuously violated, because you don't necessarily want to assume that anybody's going to continuously violate your boundary. You want to assume that they're going to honor your boundary. So it's not always necessary to state it the very first time unless you are absolutely on your last straw with that person and you are giving them one chance more. And it's like one of those boundaries where you're like, hard pass, don't ever, like, I'm not ever going to accept this. And then you want to say, because to be clear, it's really not fair to have somebody on a last chance basis if you're not going to state that. So in that case, you would state it. But in this one, this is going to be one of her boundaries that she's willing to let him work on it as long as he agrees and sees the viewpoint, validates her feelings, and understands why it's important. So in that case where Gina's going to be pretty much allowing Ronnie to adjust, because obviously he just displayed that he does have a tendency to maybe falter to this behavior, okay? So sometimes people's habits die hard. And like I said, in the passive aggressive one, my parameters for looking at it are what's its frequency, how cruel is it, and do they acknowledge it? So if it's not particularly that cruel yet, although this behavior, if it's not moving in the right direction, when it moves in the wrong direction, it can get very cruel from even starting out as something as simple as this. And I watched it happen in my last relationship, so be careful about that. I want to keep an eye on it. And this is assuming with Gina and Ronnie, this is their first time having this issue because we're addressing the first red flag, right? So at this point, she doesn't need to state what she's going to be doing if he continues to violate it. And this is how I would communicate this one. I would say, I'm going to read it because I wrote it down. I would say
really clear communication about how we are feeling when things go wrong or cause hiccups in our plans is extremely important to me. Because I'm seeking a relationship.
This part's really important.
I'm seeking a relationship where ...
Okay? Where we are clear and in the know about how each of us are feeling. Rather than having to interpret any hints or leave room for miscommunications or confusion. I am seeking a relationship where my partner says what they mean, always, and I can trust it to be true.
Where I don't have to second guess that they may secretly be mad about something or testing me. It's equally important that I provide that element of security to my partner as well, by always being forthcoming about exactly how I feel and meaning what I say when I say it.
So that is a long way of saying, mean what you say the first time you say it. Say what you actually mean. Don't drop hints, okay? And I will do the same, so trust that I will do the same. You can trust that if you ask me,
What's wrong?
and I say,
Oh, I'm just a little upset from something that happened at work, but nothing's wrong. It doesn't have anything to do with you.
that if I say that there's no chance whatsoever. You do not need to any further dwell on that and wonder if I'm telling the truth. Wonder if I'm going to suddenly get mad at you later because you didn't figure it out. You didn't continue to try to figure out what was wrong with me, and you didn't fawn all over me when I said
It wasn't you and it's not your fault.
and then I didn't just stay mad at you for days after that and totally trick you and tell you there's nothing wrong when there's clearly something wrong and it's clearly directed at you. That's playing games. Okay, we're not here to play games. So you can trust that when I say
It's not you. I'm just in a bad mood from work.
that I am absolutely 100% in a bad mood from work and it's not you. And you do not have to think a second about it further because I will mean what I say when I say it to you. And I will trust, if you're willing to be in on this with me, that you're going to work hard to do the exact same thing so that I can have that peace of mind too. You want to communicate.
That is the type of relationship that I am seeking, and it's actually so important to me that is part of my relationship, because that is what I need in my relationship to be happy and healthy in that relationship.
Maybe to a lot of you, this is a given and it's not quite as monumental as it seems to me. But I have had the experience in relationships where this is not the case. And everything is implied and everything is a game and everything is this mystery and this just passive aggressive nonsense. And I can't tell you what peace of mind this small agreement between you and your partner can make a world of difference and just save you so much stress and so much confusion that is created for absolutely no reason besides just people having egos and being stubborn. And it's just not necessary. There's no room for it in a partnership. It's creating problems that you guys don't need. And there's just something so simple and so safe in a partnership where people can just say what they mean and not have to figure out some mind game, some riddle, some stupid thing that some game someone's playing in the relationship. And so I think this is a great rule to have in any partnership that you have, but it's up to you. But this is just one that is just cornerstone for me after what I've experienced on the other side of this. Those are some of the key parts, okay? So it's telling, I'm seeking a relationship that includes behavior, the behavior you want to see. Don't frame your boundary around what you don't want. Frame your boundary around what you do want to happen. And you also want to make sure you mention, this is what I need in my relationship so that I can remain happy and healthy in the relationship. Because what does that really communicate? It communicates that it's a need. Because you need to be happy and healthy in your relationships. No one's going to want to be in a relationship or should strive to be in a relationship where they're not going to be healthy, where they're not going to be happy, right? So by framing it this way, you're getting the point across that is accurate, that this is a need. I need it. Without it, I can't be in this relationship. So that is what that means. That's how you express that it's a need and that it's a boundary. There's a little technique that people use in conflict resolution that I've learned as well. Have you ever had a whole entire argument and it really shouldn't have been so bad, but somehow you guys just got so off track, it just went left? And when you're examining it over the next few days, when you guys finally do come back to talking about it and sorting it out, you realize you guys weren't even having the same argument the entire time. That actually, somewhere in the beginning of the argument, your wires got crossed. They heard something that you didn't mean. They started addressing that. Their addressing that made you, who was looking at the original problem, feel like, well,
Why are you saying that about that?
it just got all messed up. It's a totally different message that was being debated. If you've ever played the telephone game, you sit in the circle, you whisper in each other's ear, like all the way around the circle. And then when it gets to the last person, they say it out loud. It's not the same. It's nowhere near the message that you started with. I think we learned from that game that each time information is transmitted from one person to another, we not only have just the whole aspect of actually hearing their words, we also have our brain that has to then take all those words in, comprehend them, turn them around and figure out what those words mean to them. How they hear your message is critical to you understanding why they're responding the way that they are.
Okay, yeah, what I heard you saying is that you said to me, you don't communicate clearly enough for me and I'm going to seek a new relationship.
If that's what your partner heard, then they could be like,
Okay, whatever.
And then you're just like,
What do you mean, whatever?
and then you guys get in a whole fight because they thought that you just broke up with them. They don't understand that you were just setting a boundary. That's why it's important. If you have an avoidant partner, they tend to get really annoyed by this step. It feels like condescending to them or patronizing them. And they tend to resist it because it feels like control a bit. So I think it's really important, instead of saying,
Now tell me what you heard me say.
because definitely don't say it in a sing-song voice. That doesn't tend to rub them the right way. You want to say something like, this is what I came up with. If you have a better way, then for sure. I'd be like, I hope I communicated that well enough and it wasn't hard to understand. How did you understand what I just said? How did you take it? And then just let them explain to you how they took it. After that, once you know that they have the gist of what you're saying, they understand what you're saying, they got it right, they repeated it back to you correctly. You're going to ask them, how do you feel about that? What are your thoughts on that? And then they are going to respond to you. There could be a million different ways that they could respond. So there's no way I could go over like every response for every red flag that there could possibly be. So I'm going to just go over the general categories of what the responses are going to fall under in some way, shape, or form. And just tell you how to generally respond to each one, okay? So best case scenario, obviously, is that they will understand your communication clearly. They're going to validate your feelings and be like,
That makes sense. I see why you felt that way, and your solution sounds really solid, and that makes a lot of sense why we would want to communicate that way. So I totally get how you feel. And I'm sorry that I made you feel that way.
it's always great if they throw an apology in there too. And then they'll agree that they see this as important. They're also seeking that kind of a relationship with that quality in it. And ultimately, they're on board to agree to this practice moving forward and to agree to working on this in themselves so that they don't repeat that behavior. Yes, Ronnie. Yes, Ronnie. This is the best case scenario. Ideal. Perfect. Great. Everyone wants to hear this when they bring up something like this to their partner, right? This would be excellent news. You don't need to have some extreme reaction, but it's always nice to thank your partner after a conflict resolution is complete and you guys have come to an agreement. You really want to celebrate that because oftentimes people don't celebrate their wins as much as they harp on their losses, punish for negatives. They don't reward positives as much. And that's really a tragedy, and that's very backwards in the way that the human mind works and how behavior is established and influenced and likely to increase. This is the rule of thumb. If you see a good behavior that you want to keep happening, the best thing to do for that behavior is when it's happening correctly, praise it, reward it, honor it, put a spotlight on it, make a big deal about it. Even if it's like, that's just what's expected. I hear people say that a lot.
I don't need to praise you for doing what you're supposed to do.
No, you quite literally do need to do that. That's exactly how good behavior is formed. And that's exactly how you can guarantee that it will continue to increase and repeat, is by acknowledging it and saying, kudos to you, great. So in this moment, when you guys have reached a resolution, you want to just, thank your partner for being so great at conflict resolution and thank them for just being a good partner with you in this type of thing, being a great teammate. High five them, hug, kiss. I don't know where you are in your relationship, but you want to take it there? Get real intimate. And if you haven't taken it there yet, this is a prime time. That's quite the reward. That will really influence the behavior, and I would say. But take your time, whatever's clever. Okay, so there are a plethora of other answers that you could get that are not that perfect, okay? Unfortunately. So let's go with the worst case scenario next. They just flat out disagree. They maybe even throw in some toxic responses like gaslighting you into thinking that that never happened. Or they deny it, which would also be gaslighting. Or they make excuses for it. They deflect. They talk about something you did that night. Or they focus on your behavior of, maybe Ronnie would focus on Gina's being late as the problem instead of the obvious, very specific thing that she is calling out, which is how he in the car said one thing and then was passive aggressive in the restaurant. Okay. And while, yes, she was late, that was on her. She already apologized for that multiple times. And Ronnie had said that was fine. So if Ronnie then in this conversation tries to hone in on the fact,
well, you were late. I don't know why you're blaming me. Maybe you should just be on time.
that is a deflection. That is a blame shift. That's an avoidance of the argument. That's an avoidance of accountability. And it's a big old red flag that you shall not tolerate. Please do not let people get in the habit of doing that, because they know exactly what they're doing. And they just don't want to be blamed. They feel criticized. So oftentimes people who aren't very good at handling criticism, they tend to take it really to heart. And it's just something that they're not good at taking. They just don't think they can admit to doing anything wrong. People like that will often deflect and try to put the blame back on you, because that's just, they're not comfortable with taking accountability. And as I feel for them, this is not the type of person you likely want to be in a relationship with. Another thing they might do if they disagree is they might try to accuse you of being controlling or being too sensitive. And they might say,
I just talk how I talk, and you're not going to be able to control the ways that I speak and how I address something. I was talking to my friends, and I'm sorry that you took offense to it, but that's how I talk.
They might say,
I wasn't doing that to you. Like, that's not what that was.
And stuff like that. So overall, that's a disagreement. They're disagreeing with what you've stated is your boundary and what you need. They haven't stated that they're on board. They're not even acknowledging that what they did is what they did. And that means that they're lacking the acknowledgement piece as well as agreeing to the solution. So in that case, you are going to accept that as a disagreement, and you are then going to move on to your mode of action for when someone is not going to adhere to your very needed boundary in the relationship. So first you will say,
Okay, I hear what you're saying. You're saying that you don't You don't see it that way, and you don't want to feel controlled, and you don't want to have to alter how you speak to meet this need in the relationship for clear communication and blah, blah, blah.
you know, everything you said. And then you're going to say,
So I don't think we're on the same page about this topic. And unfortunately, it's a necessity for me in a relationship. As I said, I'm seeking a relationship that has that quality, and I need it to be healthy and happy. So it's been really great spending time with you. But at this time, Ronnie, I'm going to have to go. But I truly do wish you the best.
and then at that point you can express if you want. I mean, it's up to you. This is kind of freestyled, but at that point, as long as you're still feeling like pretty calm and confident, I know this can sting. This kind of sucks. If you really liked this person and this is where it ends, it hurts. But this is critical, what you do in these next few steps. So just hear me out and trust me, okay? At that point, you want to exit that conversation. So you're going to wish them well, genuinely. And then you're going, no sassiness, no sassy, no attitude, nothing. You should be very genuine, compassionate, and really wish them well. And if you feel sad about it, just say,
I'm so sad that this is happening. I really didn't want it to turn out like this. But I do wish you all the best, and I really did enjoy our time together very much.
and then you get up and you leave. Okay? Or if you're on the phone, you say, I have to go, and you say goodbye. Now, there's a chance that they could just let you. What? And that'll be the end of it. What? I know. It's bleak. But these will be early on. You're going to be eliminating these people early on, okay? Hopefully. Because you're going to address it the first time, and you're going to see how they're going to react. This is going to tell you exactly how a relationship with this person would have ended up being, okay? Because you were very clear. And it's not unreasonable. These are going to be well thought out red flags that you've come to that are actually needs of yours. So if someone is pushing back at you this hard on one that's a very obvious need, it's great that you're getting this person out of the way and not end up spending years of your precious time and life with this person who isn't for you. It sucks, I know. So then you're going to leave, okay? That's the next part. You end the conversation no matter what they say at that point, because what is somewhat likely to happen is they're not going to be expecting you to be that about what you said especially if they're ending up in this category. And they might want to change their answer once they see that you mean it. Okay? At that point, the conversation is over, okay? I repeat, the conversation at this time has ended. So even if they go,
Whoa, wait, no, hold on. Come on, let's just talk about this here. That's a little much.
you're just going to repeat what you've already said. And you're going to say,
I'm sorry you feel that way. I don't think it's a little much. I think it's necessary. This is a need, and you said that you are not willing to meet it, and I respect that, but I need it. It's a relationship need. It needs to happen in my relationship, and that doesn't sound like we're going to have one like that. So I am sorry.
if they say something like,
Okay, fine, whatever. I'll meet your need. All right, let's just hang out. Like, stop. You're not leaving.
and they change their mind real swiftly like that, and you just want to brush past it, the conversation is still over, okay? Just a second ago, they said they were absolutely not down to meet a need that you said you needed to be healthy and happy. They were not down to do it. So don't be so quick to believe that when they can swiftly change like that and be like,
Like, okay, I can accept it. I can do it. That's fine, whatever.
no, I would need to know that they thought about that a little bit further. So in that case, if you want to give them the opportunity, you can say,
I would prefer that you take a little more time to think about this because it is pretty important to me and this relationship if we're going to be in it. So I would just prefer that you take some time because it sounded like a few moments ago you were absolutely not on board. And I just want to know that you're not doing this because you feel pressured, because I don't want to pressure you into something that you aren't really about. Take some time to think on it. I'm going to go. If you still arrive at the conclusion that you do feel like you can meet this need and it is something that you believe in and understand why it's important, then let's talk about it again. You can give me a call, such and such.
give them a time, like
You can call me tomorrow. You can call me in a couple of days.
whatever feels most comfortable to you, that you think will be enough time for them to have thought it over. But then you're still leaving. That conversation is over, adamantly, okay? You can't allow people to play around on you and play around with your time, play around with your stated boundaries, and play around with disrespecting you, because they said no. They said no, and then basically they just thought you were going to be okay with that, and then you're not. That has to mean something. Actions have consequences, okay? So you just have to demonstrate those consequences for them because they're very real. You don't allow people to play around with the respect that they show you, or your time, or your emotional and mental health. You don't let people play around with that. And this person seemed like they were playing a little bit. So to be absolutely certain that they know that that is not okay with you, you need to demonstrate with action that that is not okay with you, not just your words, okay? Very highly important. You need to stick to this. Whatever parameters you set, you follow them to a T. So this person can learn you're not to be messed with, okay? You're not to be with, okay? I know this can sound very similar to punishing behaviors in a relationship, and I want to explain why this is different. Punishing behavior is when you are treating someone badly in a relationship, or you are withholding affection or attention in an attempt to get someone to do what you want them to do, or to teach them a lesson of some sort. So it is in an effort to behave in a way that you are superior to that person, that you are like a parent coming down on a child. You see that person as inferior to you. This is totally different because this is just about communication, and it's about making sure you are compatible, and it's about valuing yourself. You're not staying in the relationship if this criteria isn't a part of the relationship. So you're not punishing somebody, you're not leading them on, and you're not trying to form them into what you want them to be without a conversation or any compromise. It's totally different. Punishing behavior is not about compatibility nor partnership. It's about control. Second type of response you might get is one that you can't quite determine whether they agree or not. And that might sound crazy, but I will tell you, a good majority of my last relationship, I didn't know what the hell was going on. I didn't know what he was saying. I didn't know if he was on my side or not. I knew that even when he would say he was, it was hinted or passive aggressively stated, and then it was said in sarcasm sometimes. There was an underhanded jab made at me. Everything was spoken in these mysterious riddles, and like he might say that everything was okay, but really he was acting like he was not okay, and he was very aggressive passively. And I just half the time felt like I was in some kind of circus and I didn't know how to get out. I was very confused. No matter how many conversations we would have, sometimes I would just be like,
I don't know still what the hell we're doing.
it was maddening. It was maddening. After going through that for nearly 3.5 years, it had a very large damaging effect on me. It was psychologically damaging. It put me in a terrible place. It had real effects on me. I will never allow someone to play with me like that again. I am not here for your silly little games. We have much better things to be doing, and I would like to enjoy my relationship, not play your silly mind games all day. I'm not doing that with anybody ever again. So this is how I will address this type of a response. And they may be doing this on accident. It's not really very common that people have the skill of clearly communicating and knowing how to address these types of things. A lot of people speak in vague ways and lack of details and roundabout, evasive language. And so they might just be so used to that they don't even know they're doing it. So you're going to give them one opportunity. Okay? So you would respond to this by saying,
I would like to continue this relationship with you and make sure that you're comfortable with agreeing to.
and then you're going to restate the boundary from before in the most concise, succinct, clear way possible so that there's no missing it. All right? So I would say,
agreeing to always say what you mean and trust that I will do the same, instead of speaking in hinting passive-aggressive language.
and maybe you reference what was said again, like at dinner. Then you give them another chance to respond, hopefully this time in a very clear way. If after that, they now give an answer that they are in agreement. Probably pretty good, right? Yay! We still arrived at the best case scenario. We've had to go another route to get to it.
Yes!
But this particular one, because of the nature of the red flag and the passive-aggressive behavior being about clear communication and being exactly about that, saying what you mean, I would be a little wary and a little worried, like in this particular example. This individual might have a little trouble doing what they're saying they're agreeing to doing because they're literally having trouble doing it right now. So I might just put out a few more feelers throughout the conversation, just kind of casually, to make sure that they actually know what they just agreed to, just to be sure. But either way, this is a good outcome. So just like I said, thank your partner. Tell them you really appreciate them for going through that with you. High five, whatever. Do what you do. Do you. Do what you do. Do what you don't. You know, do whatever you do. Whatever's clever. Okay. If they still cannot give you a clear answer, if they respond and you're still just like, what? We're not going to play with that any longer. I'm so sorry for them. Unless you can just clearly see that this person is just really struggling with it, articulating themselves in several situations all the time, and you're already very aware of that, and you're someone who is accommodating to that struggle that they have. Otherwise, I would say
I'm still really confused about what your stance is on this topic, even in this very moment. So I'm not sure that you would be able to agree to being clear and always saying what you mean, because I don't know if you're even saying what you mean right now. So,
and then you're going to proceed right into the same response that you gave for a disagreement. So you're just going to treat it like a disagreement. And you're going to say that
I don't think we're on the same page about this topic, and unfortunately that's a necessity for me in a relationship. So it's been really great spending time with you, and I wish you nothing but the best moving forward. And I gotta go.
and then you go. And then obviously if their answer after your clarification is now in disagreement, you follow the course for disagreement. Now, pretty sure you're clear on what to do if you have an agreement, but you might need a few more pointers for what you then do if there's a disagreement or an unclear answer or a disagreement and then a flip-flop, whatever sort of thing happens there. If there's a disagreement or an unclear answer, like I said, this conversation is over. You're going to proceed on with your life as though this relationship is over from that point on. If this person doesn't follow through and come to you and let you know any differently, then at this present time, that relationship is over. And you're going to proceed in every way like that is the case. And I understand, even if you were with somebody for just a little bit of time, you may have invested some feelings in them, and you'll need to probably process those and be healing. So you want to go no contact. So you're not going to be contacting them. It's very important. And you're not going to be allowing them to have contact with you, unless, of course, it's making contact to do what you stated, which is to have the conversation about whether or not they want to be on the same page about that boundary, and if they're able to do so. We know people will try it. We know that just because you say, good, like, if you want to reach out about this conversation, please do so. Otherwise, it's been great. I'll be on my way. We know that people are possibly going to do that anyways, right? So you will not answer their phone call, okay? Because you don't want to get sucked into a conversation that is trying to kind of persuade you to continue talking to them when they are not ready to adhere to this boundary that you have to uphold at this point. I'll tell you, I tried many times, way too late, albeit, to set boundaries in my last relationship, and he just continued to trample all over them. I was already so attached to him, and I was already so just wanting to be with him so badly and struggling, really struggling to let go of something that I obviously needed to, and I many times totally betrayed my boundaries that he very quickly just walked right over, because I mean, let's just get real. I wanted him in my life. I wanted to talk to him. I wanted to be with him. So if he was talking to me, and even though it wasn't what I had clearly said it needed to be, I just eventually caved. And didn't take long either. So just be very careful about this, because I'm telling you, I mean, you know, none of us are like newborn babies here. So I'm sure you know, you give somebody an inch, they are going to probably try to take a mile. If they were going to take that inch anyway, then they're likely to be very fine with taking a mile as well. So you just have to stand your ground. It's a slippery slope in these types of things. This is the mistake I always made. So I'm telling you, it's so key to start this way. I've seen a person in my life actually get to the point where they could do this the right way, and watched it work like magic. They're in a beautiful long-term relationship now that is so full of respect and so full of just everything they always wanted, and someone who treats them right. And they're so in love. It's such a beautiful, healthy relationship. And all they did differently was pretty much this. I mean, I'm sure a lot of little things along the way too, but this was the biggest thing, because they used to do the exact same thing that I'm describing. Like, they ignored the red flags in the beginning. When they got out of hand and repetitively, and the red flags were so serious and bad and violating and just more than they ever thought that they would be, then they addressed them. And it was too late. It was already just so impossible by then. This is the way to make sure you don't get there. This is the way to vet out the ones that were never going to be something good for you anyway, and to make sure that the ones that do have the right intentions for you don't get too comfortable not needing to take what you say seriously, and more so kind of do it their way that they're used to, that might not be good for you. It's sometimes it's just human nature. People will get away with what they can get away with, especially if it's their comfort zone. But doesn't mean it's right for a relationship, and it could destroy you guys. So you have to do it in the beginning, right? So this person, they're calling you. Let's say they disagreed in the conversation you had. You bid them farewell. The next day, they're ringing your line. Okay. You're not going to answer that phone call, okay? Because you're no contact. You don't know what they're going to say when you pick up that phone. And then after the phone call, you can send a message. If they don't send one themselves, if they don't put 2 and 2 together, I would say depending on how much you want this to work out or how invested you are in this, I would say if you want to speed things along, you can just reach out by text message to that phone call and just say, hey, I saw you called. Sorry, I was busy, but I was wondering, were you calling about having that conversation again? And if they say yes, then good, you can call them back. But if they say anything else, then you can either just not respond or you can just reiterate what you've already said. That there's no real future here if that's something that you guys can't get on the same page about. So there's no point in dragging it out for either of you. And that they're welcome to call you if they change their mind or text you, preferably, so that you know what it's about. And then you just stick to it. It's really important, that step. You just stick to it. You don't bend. At that point, you don't compromise. Whatever compromises you were going to have, that should be like in the level 2 type of red flags, and that should have already been communicated. You're not going to negotiate or compromise at this stage if you want to really make sure that you're taken seriously for what you say and what you expect. So don't bend, okay? This is really important. You absolutely must follow through with what you have said no matter what. I put that in my notes, really big and bold. Here's something that sometimes you don't think about. This is also true if they agreed. So it doesn't just mean like all sunshine and rainbows just because they agreed, right? Because they violated this red flag already, or else you wouldn't be here. So it's really likely to expect that they are at some point going to maybe make that mistake again. It might be in your nature, as human nature it might be, to get pretty upset when that happens again. But please remember and keep in mind that just as you are not perfect, they are not perfect either. And no one deserves to be held to a standard like that. Please do your best to give them grace, because that's what everyone should be giving to a partner, is grace and understanding in a reasonable amount. And hopefully if they were to do it again, they would recognize it, because they've already been down this road with you and they've already made this agreement. So they would recognize it. And if not, then you would point it out to them and you guys can get back on track, try it again. Hopefully this will just get fewer and further between and phase out. That's the goal. Also, hold yourself to the same standard. Encourage your partner to have a set of boundaries, to have a set of red flags, and to make sure they communicate those with you. Once you've seen a few of these, maybe just share that with them. Because it's going to come up eventually if they have any of the ones that are on the list. And remember, the more time that goes by and this is not done in the beginning, the more problematic it is, the more hurtful it is, the more toxic and traumatic. Okay? You can just avoid all of that. It's really, really important. Before we say goodbye today, what does this look like if you don't do this? What does this turn into? If you address this red flag, they don't agree, but you don't want to let them go. And you think,
It's okay if I bend on just this one. It's okay. I mean, maybe I can just learn not to need that.
right? Maybe. And the alternative to upholding your boundary when they either disagreed with it or they go on to violate it even though they did agree to it, the alternative is that you compromise just to keep this person around, right? And you can pretty much guarantee they're going to continue to cross that boundary because they told you they would, basically. And remember, you've based these on needs of yours, so it's a need. It will certainly go unmet under that circumstance. It's going to. It's going to be unmet. The problem is you can't change a need because it's a need. You need it, so you can't help it. You will continuously get upset when this happens. You can hope and pray for this person to change over time as they witness that this is upsetting you, as you said it would, as you stated to them in the beginning, that they'll witness how much you meant that. You truly meant that you needed it. They can see that. You need it. You're suffering. Maybe it would make it real for them and they would see that. And maybe by then they would care a lot about you and that would motivate them to change it, right? Maybe.
Why?
So I won't say never. I won't say that would never happen. There's a small chance that could happen. There's a very teeny little small chance that could happen. But what this will actually most likely do, is going to teach the person that you don't have any self-consideration, or very little. That's really dangerous. And it's a lot of times subconscious. It will teach them that you don't mean what you say when you tell them. So that's kind of, I mean, if it's this boundary, then it's just violating you're literally violating your own policy if you do that. So they're just going to think like what you say doesn't have any value. It's not then demonstrated in your actions, and it's not followed through with. So that's a loss of respect. And that's what it does. Subconsciously, it makes them lose respect for you. I've seen it a million times. Trust me, more than I wanted to. And they will lose it more and more each time that they witness you accept this behavior from them. And they see you get upset. But you stick around. It's like those sand timers, and the respect they have for you is just falling right through every time that happens. On top of that, another thing that will occur simultaneously is that they'll also just resent you. They'll resent you for being upset with them for it. Go figure that. They will resent you because you're just crabby all the time. You're always upset. Because your need isn't getting met. Your needs aren't getting met. They're not changing anything. And they're losing more and more respect for you, so they're doing it more and more because they have no respect for you. And the more you get upset about it, they're just resenting you for making every day bad because you're just upset. You're no fun. You're just a buzzkill. You're just negative. And then, so eventually, once even more attachments have been formed, once even more time has been spent together, once other forms of relationship attachment are in the mix, like family ties and moved in together and all these other things, assets and buying a dog together and all these things, this relationship will still come to an end. And it's going to be an exponentially more painful, terrible ending because of all of that. All of that could just be avoided if the first time you see this red flag, you just set your boundary and you uphold it. All of it. All of it. How many times, if anybody who has gotten to that type of a painful breakup after this took place for that long, and they know they saw it in the beginning, but they just, when you know better, I guess you do better, but now you gotta do better. How many people have been in that spot and thought to themselves,
I'd give anything to go back there and just leave that day. I'd give anything to go back to that moment and just walk out right then and not have to go through any of this.
Me. Absolutely me. You can now. You can prevent getting there again. And that's just what keeps me going, honestly. Another really great thing that upholding your boundaries and cutting those who just don't mesh with you because they can't meet your needs, and cutting those people early on, is just that the sheer act of respecting and valuing yourself this way creates an energy about you. And it will attract like energies. It'll attract the very people that will understand this value about you. It will attract the very people that are equally on that same wavelength, because like energy attracts like energy. That's the way it works. So when you're a person that's a little bit of a pushover and maybe a little bit blind when it comes to being in love, when you're in love, that energy attracts the type of people that mesh well with that, the type of people that benefit from that, that flourish in that energy for a time, and that are looking for something like that. Somebody that they can get one over on and manipulate and control and not have to really have all that much expected out of them because they know they'll get away with it. That's the type of energy that is going to bring you. But when you hold yourself to this standard, you're going to feel so empowered. You're going to just be radiating that energy. It's a real thing. It is going to just be pouring out into the universe and vibrating out in the atmosphere and subconsciously be sending so many different messages every second that you aren't even aware of. It's so strong and it happens so automatically that we just don't even know it's happening. But it's going to pull people into you that are on your same wavelength. And then you won't face as many of these problems anymore because you will be attracting people that just aren't even going to take you to that level. So it just elevates you. If anybody who's here at the end of this video with me has ever experienced in their relationships any of these red flags, has a story to tell about how this went south, comment down below the video about some really good ideas you've had or some boundaries that have worked for you involving these 5 different red flags. I want to know if you have any other pointers or something that you know has worked well. Or like I said, any story that you have about one of these just really coming in hot in your life and just dropping bombs, nearly just blowing your whole life up. Expect the best for yourself. It's time. You deserve it. I can tell you it's time for you to go through something that you deserve and something happy and something fulfilling. And this is the start of it. It's just teaching people how to treat you. That's why they say you can't love anybody else unless you love yourself first. And that doesn't always just mean that no one will love you because you don't love yourself. It also means that you're going to end up with people that are just not good for you if you don't love yourself, because you're just flocking to the wrong energies, because your energy isn't where it needs to be for you, for how great you are. You deserve so much better, and you can have it. All right? So thank you for sticking through this entire video. I love you. Bye!